Hello, I welcome you to another video lesson session. Today's lesson is for JHS2 Social Studies. Social Studies for JHS2. And we are discussing entrepreneurship. We'll be looking specifically at the types of enterprises. In our previous lesson, we looked at entrepreneurship. We are continuing with entrepreneurship and we are looking at types of enterprises. It is me, your facilitator, from Kiakapo. And today's lesson's objectives is that by the end of the lesson, the student will be able to define enterprise, identify the forms of enterprise, and then describes the various types of enterprises. An enterprise is a business unit that is established to produce goods and or render services for consumers. So any business unit that is established to either produce goods and render services, or to produce goods only, or render services only, or to do the two, for consumers, is an enterprise. Having defined what enterprise is, let me say that there could be two forms of enterprises. And these are private enterprises and state-owned enterprises. Private enterprises and state-owned enterprises. To say an enterprise is state-owned means that that business unit is set up or is established by the state. When I say by the state, I mean by the country. Either by the government in power or by a state institution. And examples of such companies are ECG, that is the Electricity Company of Ghana, GWCL, that's the Ghana Water Company Limited, VRA, that is the Volta River Authority, and then TOR, TOR, that is the Tema Oil Refinery. All these are enterprises or businesses that have been set up by the state. So we say they are state-owned enterprises. Then we have private enterprises. And these are business units that are owned by private individuals or groups. They may be enterprises that produce goods or render services, but are not established by government or a government institution. Or rather, they are established by private people or groups. Examples of such enterprises are Unilever Ghana Limited, Kina Pharma Ghana Limited, MTN Ghana, and this is supposed to be Central University. Central University, a university college that is owned by a private individual. Then Belight International School, our school, it's a private business owned by a private individual. So it is either an enterprise is private or state owned. But whether it is private or it is state owned, it may be classified or named as a particular type of business based on other things. And this brings us to types of enterprises. There are generally 5 types of enterprises in Ghana, and this classification is based on ownership, source of fund, supposed to be fund, F-U-N-D, source of fund, mode of formation, and then share of business outcome, that is either profit or loss. And based on these factors, enterprises can be classified into these 5. And the first one is sole proprietorship. Sole proprietorship. Excuse me. The next one is partnership. And then we have limited liability companies or joint stock companies. We have limited liability companies or joint stock companies. And then we have cooperatives. And apart from that, we also have public corporations. Public corporations. So the 5 types of enterprises are sole proprietorship, partnership, limited liability company or joint stock company, then cooperatives, that's cooperatives, and then we have public corporations. In our subsequent lessons, we'll be looking at these types of enterprises one after the other We'll look at sole proprietorship, its advantages and disadvantages, source of funding, challenges, and so on. And we'll do same for all these 5 types of enterprises. So I want you to read ahead, take your textbooks, read on the topic carefully before the next lessons. But until then, test your knowledge on what you have learned today. You answer these questions. What is an enterprise? Number 1. Number 2, mention 2 state-owned and 2 private enterprises. And then for number 3, you list any 3 types of businesses you know. This brings us to the end of today's lessons. I want you to keep learning and stay safe. See you next week. Bye-bye.